Today on the Dad the Best I Can show.
Plus, Rob, I mean, just like you and so many of our colleagues, so many people were so busy with their everyday lives and their responsibilities at work. Being parents, the last thing they want to do is agonize, with their travel plans. I mean, we view ourselves in the same way that people would when they're purchasing a home and they have their real estate person.
Welcome to the Dad the Best I Can show. My name is Rob Roseman. Who wants to be a millionaire legend, Chicago futures trader, Vegas poker pro? Now I'm a dad to 3 kids, ages 7, 5, and 2. Phew! Wears me out just thinking about it. Each week we bring on high-performing dads like you, entrepreneurs like Jesse Itzler, CEOs like David Cancel from Drift.com, athletes like Ken Rideout, best-selling children's authors like Zach Bush, to tell us your stories, your dad tips and tricks, to help all of us make it through dad life. We have a brand new website over at dadthebestican.com. Go on over to dadthebestican.com and sign up with your email. It's 100% free, of course. Be the first to hear brand new dad guests and get weekly dad tips in your inbox. How else are you going to keep up with the roller coaster that is dad life? We are running a really fun dad challenge every single week. We talk dad life and learn from dads much wiser than us. We're using an awesome free iPhone app called Spar. You know how hard it is to make a new habit stick, like running, reading, writing, even flossing. With the Spar app, you can win or lose real money with a group of friends to hold you accountable. It's a lot of fun, and it seriously works. Find out more about the challenge at dadthebestican.com. There is a new challenge you can join right now. Okay, enough out of me. On to today's show. All right, welcome to the Dad the Best I Can show expert edition. We are lucky to be joined by Josh Alexander. Josh, how's it going today?
It's going great, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Where are you calling in from?
Calling in from cloudy and still chilly New York City. It was in the 70s yesterday, but back down to the 50s today. So
Yes, the head
hopefully
fake.
spring will be here.
The head fake of spring. So Josh and I, we know each other from way back and growing up in Miami together. I'm glad we reconnected.
Likewise.
So Josh, we're going to talk about your expertise here in a minute, but first and foremost, you are a dad. How old are your kids?
They are 4, and this coming Saturday, I'll have a 2-year-old. So
Wow.
4 and 2.
You are right up in it then.
Oh, yeah, in the thick of it.
So Josh is a luxury travel advisor, but that wasn't always the case. You made a big career change a few years ago, reinvented yourself.
Practiced law 8.5 years. Was a unhappy attorney. Sort of took a African honeymoon with my wife, and sort of fell in love with the industry and been doing this since 2010.
That's awesome. And you haven't looked back. You're happy with the change?
Very happy. It's been incredible. Just get to travel all over the world, amazing relationships all over the world that benefit not only me and my team and my clients, and it's incredible.
So I'm sure you get this a lot in a world of Airbnb and kayak and orbits and all this thing, do-it-yourself travel. Why is there still such a need for a travel agent or an advisor like you?
Flat out service and recourse. I mean, when a consumer is going to those sites, number one, they're not getting any guidance. They're merely a number, and they're getting spit out a confirmation. They don't even know if they're getting good value or not. In case in point with us, with most, when you book through us, me and my team are well traveled, and we've have vetted a lot of properties. But in 90% of the time, we're going to have a sort of association with the hotel or the group, where clients of ours will get extra value add amenities. And often, if we know someone on property, we'll advise them of when a client is arriving, try to upgrade them. And just from knowing the hotel industry pretty well that the bookings that come in from an online travel agency, an Expedia, and Orbitz are lowest on the totem pole in terms of room allocation upgrades, because the hotels love having information on their guests, and so that I think that's a strong case for us from a service point of view. Also, just from an advisory point of view, I mean, many people, if you go onto those sites, they don't give you any direction, right? In terms of guidance, in terms of a certain kind of hotel, right? If it's good for children, if it's contemporary, if it's classical, location, everyone's trip is different, right? If it's a leisure trip where you're going somewhere for 5 nights and you want to be in a certain location, or you're in a business trip and you need to be in a certain area. So I think the human element of the service from a hotel side, and you mentioned kayak, Rob, and I know you've been known to rip your hair out of your head or throw your
Yeah, I mean
computer out the window.
that's the thing. It's like they make it like it's so easy, and I'm sure other people can relate to this. I could spend 6 hours and not have booked anything, and now I'm just annoyed, and I don't even book the trip because it's just annoying. And placing one call to you could probably solve that whole problem, right?
Correct. I mean, with our systems, we have the ability to sort of provide clients with different routes and different options within a route. The pricing will always be the same or better that someone would see directly on an airline website or through Kayak. But the big difference also is in this day and age of, like, if most people, if you're on Kayak or just booking online, something happens to your flight, a delay, a cancellation, you're either stuck on a 2-hour hold with the airline. Good luck trying to get a human being on the other end of, like, Kayak. Whereas we just tap right into we have direct connect with these airlines. We could fix an issue, protect people on different flights, make sure that a ticket needs to be refunded if they decide to jump and get on a different flight. So there's a huge service aspect in that. And this is probably getting a little too technical, but we know how to read the different, like, the different fares and what those letters mean that you see when you often see when you book a flight. In this day and age, the airlines try to trick people with these, like, if you're an economy passenger, these basic economy fares that people might see as like a teaser, not knowing that those certain fares don't come with a seat assignment. There's no luggage allowed, no carry-ons.
Seatbelts optional, right? Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so right, yeah, exactly. Like, you can't use the bathroom, all that kind of stuff, and so we advise people on those types of things. And if people want to do like a crazy ticket where they want to go one way business class and return in economy, that's something you can't even price out online or on these things, and we're able to do that. So
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, your first thought would be that a lot of this, online industry has hurt your business, and maybe it has for other people, but it also created, even more value for what you guys do, because yes, like you said, just because this stuff exists doesn't mean it's not a pain in the ass. And I've lost my mind. I was trying to go this month on a trip, and I literally just threw in the towel. I should have just called you. I'd be sitting at a beach right now by myself.
You should have a beach or a pool, exactly. Yeah, and I think I forgot. There's some stats out there that all these hotel companies have done tons of research, and I think the average consumer, I think, views something like 8 to 11 different websites before pulling the trigger on or even if they will pull the trigger on deciding on a vacation spot, or people who are just used to booking online, which shows that there's a need for the human element in there to help guide people. Plus, Rob, I mean, I'm just like you and so many of our colleagues. So many people are so busy with their everyday lives and their responsibilities at work. Being parents, the last thing they want to do is agonize, with their travel plans. I mean, we view ourselves in the same way that people would when they're purchasing a home and they use they have their real estate person, or considering buying life insurance, or like a financial advisor. It's the same type of concept.
It's a big investment, and it's something that should be fun. It shouldn't be miserable, booking a trip. And like you said, time is our, most scarce resource and the most important thing. So just the peace of mind, all these things. I'm sold. So I guess one objection somebody might have or thought is that, oh, this is going to cost me a lot more. Is that not the case either?
Generally not the case. I mean, in terms of the actual fare on a flight or the hotel rate doesn't cost more. I mean, there are certain cases where we're doing um, big like family trips, like we, for instance, like a big trip to Africa that may have 10 to 20 people, and we're doing not just flights and accommodations, but guides and every little component. Sometimes there might be a trip planning fee involved in something like that, which is just sort of to protect us, with our work and our time. But generally speaking, to book a flight or to book a hotel, it wouldn't cost anymore.
Right. And I mean, like we both said, that peace of mind and that just knowing it's taken care of is invaluable today, especially as parents. Maybe when I was 26 and single and I wanted to get a
Sure.
ski house with my buddies, I could sit there for 4 hours and pick and choose and try and save a couple bucks. But man, these kids are a game changer, right?
Absolutely. And we're even, the kids are a game changer, and just the way that people are traveling with children is changing. And we're seeing people really make their children the focal point of a lot of their travel decisions, or at least their leisure travel decisions. And what we're seeing more and more is that people are sort of creating a roadmap or a schedule of sort of trips, the different types of trips to plan out for when the kids are 2 to 5, and then as they maybe just
Hmm.
focus on more sort of beach resort like vacations, and then you got your Disney vacation, and then as they get older, um, take them on some things that are a little more relevant to what they're learning in school, history, take them to Europe for the first time. So
So
it's
yeah, I
fascinating to
like
see.
that. Give
Yeah.
us. Can you give us a couple examples of trips? Maybe. I mean, my kids are 6, 4, and 1, so we barely want to leave the house sometimes. But sure, you've taken your young daughters to a lot of places, maybe a little bit more ambitious, but since you are, an expert. But any travel tips for parents, at least location wise?
I mean, it's all relevant to where someone lives, but if you're in a big sort of metropolitan area on the East Coast or Midwest, there's so many nonstop flights to warm weather destinations, whether it be Florida or the Caribbean or Mexico. And I think just going to a sort of a great resort, whether it's an all inclusive or just a luxury resort that has great service and great amenities, and also things that will sort of occupy your children while you're there is great. And at most hotels, um, kids clubs are usually 4 and up, so that's sort of a great perk of sort of built having someone else sort of built in to watch your children.
Love it.
And yeah,
Sold.
and Rob, I'll tell you a big trend that we're seeing, that a lot of hotels are starting to do, and this is definitely more on the sort of luxury side, 4 and 5 star. They're not building the kids club of the old days where was maybe like a glorified hotel room or a place somewhere on property where there was a couch and a DVD player, and they put on movies, and it was glorified babysitting. And now the big trend is to have sort of like a schedule that the hotel would put out week to week with different activities, and almost have like a camp counselor type of mentality. And I love taking my own children to places like that. And when we tell clients about it, they really warm up to the idea, because it gives them peace of mind that, number one, they're not going to have to watch over their children, nonstop. But in a lot of these cases, like I've discovered with my own daughters, they love being being with someone else. They think it's cool if they have a sort of camp counselor for a few hours, and they get away from mom and dad.
Right.
Back in January, when we were in Puerto Rico, which is built back up and very safe to go to, by the way. We were at the Dorado, which is a Ritz-Carlton reserve resort, about 45 minutes out of San Juan, and they have this thing that's called Cousteau Ambassadors of the Environment. And my 4-year-old daughter did this whole sort of archaeologists for a day, where they just sort of, it was more of like a 3 hour thing where they took her into the forest and she about these different like leaves and different flowers, and then they did some cool stuff along the beach and with shells, and it was awesome. So
That's great. Yeah, and you're not going to really get that on your own if you go book it and you just show up somewhere. And really, the whole thing is about the experience. So I think building in that experience, especially if it's done for you and your kids, that's an awesome, awesome value add.
correct. And then as kids, tend get older, we see parents want to start taking them to, like I said, some things that maybe are more relevant to what they're starting to learn in school, or taking them to Washington D.C. for people who aren't in New York, taking them to New York City to, taking a Broadway show and go to museums, Statue of Liberty, key sites, and then, taking kids to Europe, especially like the big popular cities like London, Paris, Rome, is very popular these days in terms of there's great hotels, child friendly. The whole trend of just arranging guides these days are a lot more friendlier and easier than I think when we were younger. And then even more long term. I mean, and I don't know if it's a New York based thing or where I'm just seeing parents wanting to take these sort of big exotic like trips with children at a younger age. And what I mean by that is taking them to like Southeast Asia or going on like an African safari, as young as 6 and 8 years old. So,
Wow.
I mean, I know that's probably ambitious for some, but it's,
Yeah,
I
you
think
never
that,
know,
yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Right. And I mean, at the end of the day, which actually I don't like that slogan at the end of the day, but whenever somebody says it, I cringe and I just did it.
Yeah.
But, this is what life is about is traveling experiences. I mean, I'd way rather spend my money on a trip than I would, go buying a new car or something. So this is where I think, people are allotting their money now.
Absolutely. And I think, a lot of people are, some people say that, air travel is, they dread having to go on an airplane, but, also in terms of just the routing, I mean, I think you know, it's become a lot easier so many more destinations have opened up in the past 10, 15 years, just because of, newer airplanes and airplanes with, longer capacities, or just new destinations becoming more popular that airlines are investing in certain places. So I think it's become a lot easier to get to so many places, and I think as long as as a parent, I hate having to connect, period. But I don't think I've ever taken a connecting flight with my children, because if I can go anywhere in a nonstop flight,
Yeah.
um, to me it's an open destination to go to with my children.
Yeah, it's funny. I took a rare solo trip last year, and I ended up on a
Who was watching the
stop.
kids?
I don't even know. I ended up on a layover somewhere, and I literally didn't even know that it was part of the trip, and I didn't even bat an eye because it was just me. So I'm like, oh, get to listen to another podcast, watch another movie. It was like, where are we? Salt Lake City,
Totally.
perfect. Let's go.
Yeah.
But like you said, with kids, you want to get that over with. Let's take a quick break for our dad tip of the week, brought to you by Kickstart Reading. Do you have kids between the ages of 3 and 6? I've got 2 boys, and when my older son was going into kindergarten, my wife and I quickly learned that we had no idea how to teach him how to read. We found Kickstart Reading and watched one 2-minute video together, and you could see his confidence take off. Bonus, I felt like Dad of the Year. Here's another dad talking about how Kickstart Reading is helping his boys learn how to read.
Hey there, this is Chris Heller, and I'm a big fan of Kickstart Reading. Each morning before school, I show a video to my 4.5-year-old son, and now his little 2-year-old brother is getting in on the action as well. I'm a big fan of the videos, highly consumable and engaging for young boys. Definite recommend for all parents out there who are looking to get their kids off to the right start with reading. Kickstart Reading.
Go to kickstartreading.com and use the code DAD to get 65% off right now. That's DAD, DAD. See? It works. kickstartreading.com. Now back to the show. Along those lines, you've taken your girls all over the place. Any travel tips for flying, driving, traveling with kids? I'm sure there are a ton, but can you give us a couple?
In terms of flying, I think there's a lot of like little things that people could do that we do to make traveling easier when it comes to airports and planes. Number one, I mean, we get to the airport earlier than I would normally do if I was traveling on my own, just in terms of like getting through security and all that stuff. We do one of our first purchases from when my first daughter was 3 months. We started traveling. We have and now we only use it for my younger one, but we have a stroller called a Baby Zen Yo-Yo, which is the only. There might be some other ones now, but for a very long time, it was the only stroller that it folds up and it actually fits in the overhead of any airplane. So you don't have to gate check it. You don't have to check it underneath. You're sort of in control of it the whole time. And I think that's key because you could sort of keep a really young child in it all the way to the gate. And then you don't have to worry about it getting lost or damaged.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what people who don't travel often might not know, regardless of your status or where you're sitting on a plane, you are, anyone traveling with, minor children are entitled to board first, to give yourself a little extra time. And then, one other thing I'll tell you, and this is probably maybe getting a little too technical, but for my 2-year-old, and we used to have it for my older daughter when she was younger, now that my 2-year-old is no longer considered a lap infant and we have to buy her a seat, she still will, she's still not going to sit in her seat the whole time. And she's like a little monkey, jumping all over the place. There's a great product called, I think it's called the Child Care System, where it's basically like a seatbelt system made by the same people who make all like airlines, pilots, seatbelts, and it basically emulates as if they were still like in a car seat. So it helps keep them in place, but also a little more. It's more of a safety thing, keeping them more secure while they're if there was any turbulence or anything like that.
Right, that is good because on your lap it doesn't work for us. They're all over the place.
Lap and with all the distractions, everything. It's crazy. And then in terms of whenever we've gone to Europe with the kids, we always, that first day, whenever we get to the hotel, get sort of situated, feed the kids, and we always we take a family nap. I mean that's and we'll sort of almost pin them down to the point and make them take it. And then the last thing that I learned sort of the hard way my first trip to Europe with the kids, but have always we let our girls just stay up much later in Europe because of the time difference. They're going to stay up later, and there's no point in, like, if they, my girls will go to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock in New York, but if when we go to Europe, 9 o'clock in Europe, 9:30 in Europe is 4:30, 3:30 in New York. So there's no point in trying to get them to go to bed early. We just sort of like let them enjoy the day longer, and sort of as the time goes on, they'll just sort of get more and more adjusted to the local time.
Yeah,
so,
make it like New Year's Eve or something. They'll be excited, and then they'll crash.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've had friends even going to California, and it's like, what do you do with your kids and bedtime? And it can really screw up a couple days. So getting some tips is helpful.
I mean, one other tip I'll tell you is, I mean, I could probably write a book on all the babysitters we've had around the world at different hotels. So we're not fortunate enough to really have anyone watch our kids. So while we love traveling with our kids, my wife and I would love a vacation of ourselves, which we're actually going to get one coming up in June. But we have used many of babysitters all over the world, and I've just sort of learned to not really care too much about their, backgrounds and credentials. And as long as there's sort of, it's a service that's vetted by the hotel I'm staying at, keep my, as long as my girls are alive, don't sweat it. And I found out that the girls they get excited when they have a sort of, babysitter. So,
Right.
I would definitely encourage, even if it's a family trip, within that trip, if you want to get, some alone time with your wife or your husband to go out to dinner, use a hotel babysitter for sure.
Yes, you're selling me. My wife's going to want to go on a trip after hearing all this, because that is part of the hesitation of going with young kids. It's like, if it's more work than being at home, so it does take some guidance to travel with kids, because most of us have never done it before, so it's helpful
Totally.
tips.
And then, one other tip is, and this sort of varies location to location, hotel to hotel, but some people just want to be in the same room with their kids and they don't mind. And I know other, people want to try to have a situation where they could have separate the bedroom from like the living room area, for sleeping. And I think it's, instead of getting like one, a larger suite, if you will, it's always better to try to get two connecting rooms. So you have an extra bathroom, you have an extra point of entry and point of exit, so that if you do go out at night and there's a babysitter, you could sort of sneak out without
right.
waking the kids. But
you would appreciate we tried this at Disney, and we all packed into one of these quote unquote suite rooms, and I ended up like having to sneak out with a crying baby. I think I was asleep in the lobby of the Dolphin Hotel, and security came up to me because I had a stroller next to me. I'm passed out on a bench, and he's like, "Sir, do you have a room here?" I'm like,
Nope.
"Yep, it's upstairs. I'm just
no
I'm
way."
sleeping one off." Yeah, it was, and I'm like, "This is what I'm paying for," but this is traveling with kids, and I guess maybe had we known better, we would have just got a connecting room.
Yeah, exactly.
For just me.
One other thing I'll tell you, I mean, I don't know how you guys are with your kids. I mean, we try to limit their sort of screen time and TV time, or we do, I should say, when we're at home. But when we're on planes, all the rules go out the door. I mean, we make sure they eat, make sure they go to the bathroom, they'll try to resist that, but anything that's going to keep them entertained and occupied on the flight, that's the big exception to the rule for the.
I think that's my kids. I think that could be my kids' favorite part of traveling, is that they get to use iPads in the car or the plane. So
yeah, they do. I mean, totally. My daughter knows that she's going to get to play games and watch movies. So
right, that's better than a trip for them. Sometimes it's frightening.
Exactly.
All right, Josh. Well, I appreciate it. And where can people learn more about your business and getting some more travel assistance?
They can email me, call me. The website is protravelinc.com. That's the name of my agency. I'm on Instagram at JourneysJosh, and email is josh.alexander@protravelinc.com.
Well, thank you, Josh, for being on the Dad the Best I Can show, Expert Edition. I'm ready to book a trip this summer, and I'll be calling you to set that up.
Pleasure's all mine, Rob. Appreciate the time.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening to the Dad the Best I Can show. Go take 5 seconds, hop on over to dadthebestican.com and sign up with your email to get weekly updates, dad tips in your mailbox. Get your questions answered on the show. That's dadthebestican.com. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Actually, 5 stars. We could do better than that. Brooks? Infinity stars. Cameron, how many stars?
Infinity 1,000.
Infinity 1,000. You gotta one-up them in this household. Thanks. See ya.